I'm Vijay. I work in Singapore in the shipping industry. I've been in Singapore for the last 14 years, but I'm born and brought up in Chennai. And most of my schooling and college was done in Chennai. I moved to Singapore for job opportunities. But then my family hails from a small village near Tirukkoilur, where we were traditional village headmen. But there are a few small temples in my village built by my great grandfather. So you could say there's a little bit of blood connect to temple architecture and temple art. And though I have no formal degrees in history or art, I'm largely self-taught. And sometime around 2004-5, I realized that I had a good job that could afford me a good camera. So I started photographing a lot of heritage sites, and as part of my learning process, I was in the Kanjipuram Kailasanathar temple. I realized that it was inscription for Rajaraja to build the big temple. But then as I was going around it, I saw a small boy and a girl being held by the father, and he was looking at this huge sculpture of Shiva's Gangadhara, and the boy asked his father, "Who's this?" And my friend, God knows who, he said it's Vishnu and walked off. That's when I realized how little our own people know about it. But then I didn't want to say that it was bad on the father's part, but then hardly anybody even went around this beautiful jeweled temple, I would say. They just went inside, did their pujas and came out. Nobody even spent a little time in going around. That's when I realized that there has to be this little effort of taking the horse to the water at least if they want to drink or not. And that was the time when some of my friends said, "You have a corpus of these photographs. Why don't you do a book?" And I promised myself that I will not do a book, which I have to take back now. But I said I will not do a book because I found a lot of expert scholars writing books, but they wrote books that exhibited their intelligence rather than playing to the audience, and it was more like PhD theses. You couldn't even turn the third page, and most of these books were bought by libraries. First issue, nobody's even borrowed it. And I felt that there's wealth of information in that, but then it's not. So there was this need for a dummy's guide to art iconography. Another friend of mine who was at that time based in the US, an IT guy, because I'm an IT nerd. I have no ways. I know nothing about computers and little 14 years ago. So he introduced me to blogging. And in fact, he registered my domain as poetry and stone, and everything over Google we had done a tutorial, everything online, and I started blog posting it. And from the start, I decided it should be bilingual, not just in Tamil, because I felt that the larger audience is going to turn to the internet to search for sites. And though it was not the intended option, a lot of people were repeat commenters. And that's when I found that there were a lot of like-minded individuals turning to the internet for reliable data, including not like the typical Salapuranam works, but not as simple as a travelogue, a bridge between these two, a little bit of iconography not involving complicated terms and words. And then we managed to use this as a tool to form the core, which Touchwood has stayed to this day. After about 200, 250 posts, the stuff is empty, the coffers are empty, so we need to go and fill it up. So we need to go out and read and learn more and visit sites. We started buying everything that's printed, published material, we started archiving it because we are dispersed. One guy is in the US, one guy is here, I'm in Singapore. We started building a knowledge base of distributed work. So we started buying books, getting a friend, sister to scan it so that we could just not put it up on the net, but internally look at it. And then we used to pick a certain site for every 6 months and read about it for 6 months and then visit the site. So by the time you go to the site, you've read everything about it. And then we realized that these were documented 50, 60 years ago and nobody else has done it. So we went down there with all the permissions from the ASI. We would document it, leave a copy with them, and then come back. And we decided from day one that we will not put any copyrights, we would not charge any royalties. He said when the original sculptor himself didn't sign his work, who are we to put a watermark? So we started giving it out free to anybody who came, and we told researchers and scholars, you want a high resolution, you ask us, we will give you the high resolution as well. So that's when we started getting support from scholars also to our effort. And they would say, have you gone to this site? And so we started getting a wish list. So over the last 10 years, we've been to almost 240 sites in India where we have documented it, almost like a week's documentation in high resolution. So that kind of helped. See, what happened was till about 2013, it was more We were doing it from the background, and occasionally my name would come out. But then it was still looked up as an individual effort. So we were not getting the necessary traction with authorities because you are an unknown face. So around 2013, when the new government came in, and I would say the stars aligned, and we started getting support from the media, and we started cracking high-profile cases like the Sri Purandan Nataraja, the Vidajala Madanari, which of course we will speak in much detail a little later. That's when wherever Prime Minister Modi went, he would be given what they call gifts, which I feel it's a wrong word to use, because you give something that you own, not a stolen property. It's restitution or return. So as this happened, there was a lot more people asking, who the hell is this guy who is able to bring all this stuff back? And the risk started mounting a bit, and also the need to form a structured. So that's when I met in 2014, 2013, I met Anuraag, who was at that time in Singapore and doing a lot of work with the government in Delhi. And I realized that my time was better spent in the hardcore research part, and I needed somebody to handle the lobbying in Delhi and also work on the social media outreach, because the social media, of course, is a lot of stuff to be done. So Anurag handles the social media and the work in Delhi, because I've been there 3-4 times, and I said I'm better off doing the hardcore work on the side. But then I would say there's a lot more key members who choose to be behind scenes for obvious reasons, and I think we all owe them a sense of gratitude because they are doing nameless work. See, we started off with a very simple request. When we found that the social media was migrating from Google Groups, Yahoo Groups to Facebook and Twitter, we migrated also our groups into that. And our only request to start with in Facebook was, whenever you go to an overseas museum, take one photo with you, as usual, take one without you, send us the one without you. So that was a simple one. In the last 12 years, I have built the largest collection of distributed Indian art in museums worldwide, free of cost, for a few Facebook likes. So this happens, and then we started having themed weeks. Like there will be a Vishnu week, there will be a Narsimha week, and then people would come and post and debate and all that. So we have focus groups for stone sculpture, for bronzes. We started splitting this up state-wise and all that. But then there are a few, not just, I'm not talking about Indian volunteers. We have a lot of overseas volunteers as well who feel equally connected with Indian art, and they strongly feel that it should be in situ. It should not be reduced to showpiece curios. So they do help us. So we get a lot of random leads, and today Twitter and social media help a lot. People can remain, and I think we have re-emphasized the trust, because they know that we are very few people in India who do this without any agenda. We are not doing it for any rewards or awards, and they've seen the success, and we have been successful in making sure the data is protected, and we work towards not just restitution, but also in ensuring that the criminals are caught and prosecuted. And I feel that the institution is much larger. Like, I wouldn't take all the credit for the work that we do. I have a team, and the team has trust in me. So it has to function, the different departments have to function. During some of these visits, that's when the first brush. So this was never a vigilante startup. It was more a documentation startup, a self-learning process. So when we went in and started documenting it, we realized that even what is published in the books was not present on the site. And quite often when we asked them at the site, they would say it's in the godown. We go into the godown, they'll say it's in the museum. Go to the museum, they'll say it's in the stock. So there was something amiss. And that's when a lot of stuff started, because of the internet searches getting even more customized. We could look at a lot of Indian art that is coming up for auctions openly. And we started reading more about it, and we realized that there's hardly any provenance. Provenance, basically anything related to it. And most of them looked freshly looted, meaning you could see that they didn't have legs, they didn't have hands, they would have chisel marks in the back. And these were real telltale signs, and we started reading up about it. And then we went back and looked at how successful India has been in the past in restituting, and we realized that it was a big problem. So we looked at the prominent restitution cases, and we found that not too many detail was available in India about what actually aided the restitution. Of course, there are a lot of these scholars claiming that they have played an integral part in bringing back. A lot of the gold cloth ceremonies have happened, but then we found that the public didn't know the full story. And from young age, I've called a spade a spade. I've got into a lot of problems with that, but I feel that history is something that should not be sugar coated. History is something that has to be delivered as such. So that's it, a long answer to your question. So this is where the genesis of India Pride project happened. There are, unfortunately, in the art market, there are no statistics because it's an unpoliced, unaccounted market. Okay. Yeah, I would say that there is no white market, there is no gray market. It's purely unpoliced, unregulated free market. Nobody knows the supplier, nobody knows the buyer, and it's just having billions of dollars moving around. So wherever it is lax, it's like your drunken driving check. If they know this road, then they go the other road. Okay. So unfortunately, there needs a more concentrated effort from all these buying nations who are buying from us. So this is in just what is happening. So this data anybody provides is based on surveys, and surveys have to be taken with. So my estimate, when I talk about it, I talk from hard data that we have in terms of volume numbers that we see being trafficked. I would say that every decade we are losing 10,000 pieces, major works of Indian art. And when I say Indian art, it ranges right from Indus art. We've seen Indus seals being auctioned. We've seen anthropomorphic forms, Indo-Gangetic plain anthropomorphic forms. We see Jain art. We see Buddhist art. It's anything that old is being out in the market. And there is a lot of numismatics that goes out. There's a lot of temple jewelry that's being sold. So there are even temple cards, temple tears, vahanas that are being sold. A lot of Jain Tirthakaras, hero stones, Sati stones are being robbed now. And these are loose sculptures which have been not documented. For me, my logic always is no amount of passage of time lends sanctity to a stolen object. A stolen object remains to be a stolen object. Now, how strong is your claim? If for example, after 1970, after the UN Convention for Illicit Trafficking comes up, if you can prove that this object was still in India and left illicitly, your claim is very, very strong. And we have seen very big success in cases where we were able to prove, which again comes to the fact that our archiving is so pathetic that we will not have the same amount of success with the other recently trafficked. In fact, we have objects that have been stolen from ASI centrally protected sites, from site museums, for which the photographs are missing, the FIRs are missing, which now after the restitution we have found that, yeah, it was stolen from a centrally protected site. But then there's a lot more that has not been documented that leaves the country. Plus, we also have this whole host of buried stuff that comes up, especially if you take Chola bronzes. During the Islamic invasion of 1314, 1313, a lot of our bronzes were buried for safety. So they were ceremoniously buried so that after the threat goes, you could bring it up. But sadly, the threat went, but the people who hid them
died or forgot.
I would not use the word forgot because they took so much amount of pain to save their god. So I would, in fact, my prologue is that basically they took their secrets to the grave rather than reveal their gods, they were killed. So now these are getting out of India, and these are clearly pieces that have incrustations. They know that there is sand incrustation, for example, and then there are restorers in London who are cleaning it, knowing very well that it's a freshly excavated piece where they're complicit with the trade. And these objects are coming up, and collectors actually seem to cherish this because they do have this artificial, if you take bronzes for example, they have this artificial natural patina which is like corrosion on the bronze. It gives it a greenish patina. The collectors like it because they know that this piece is buried. There is no chance of a photograph coming up. So there can be, once it's out of India, there is no way you can get it back legally.